Hi there, it is time for Meals with Melissa, where I come up with great ideas that make semi-healthy foods a little bit healthier, and of course, I don't do complicated. So today we're gonna do something fun. We're always looking for great snacks at my house, and most of us are at least on some sort of a meal plan just because we've got some goals. And we tend to do a little lower carb, which ultimately means we need to do a little bit higher in fats. Now, I need to take a step back and remind people that, I know we had this big craze in the 90s and we still have a lot of like low fat options. We actually need a certain amount of fats in our life. Hi, Melissa. So that's really important to remember that, carbs actually tend to be a problem if we get a little too crazy with it. And it's not even carbs themselves that are the problem. It's just mostly eating garbage, like simple sugars and processed food. So at our house, we tend to go a little bit lower in carbs. I already know through my genetics that I'm a little more carbohydrate intolerant, which just means that my body deals with carbohydrates in a little bit different way. So in general, I tend to do fairly low carb and a little bit higher in fats. So this is along those lines. Now, if you are a lot more a different body type and you tend to do really well with carbs, that's a different ball game. We do have some options for that. If you go back into my history of Meals with Melissa, we've got some great options. But you just have to work with your macros. That's what's really important, is making sure that you're getting the right fit for you if you're trying to live on a healthy basis. Now, for most people, honestly, it just comes down to cleaning up their diet just a little bit, cleaning up their nutrition, eating less processed food. There's actually research that shows the average American eats about 50 to 70% processed food on a regular basis, and then we wonder why we have such an issue with obesity and carbohydrate, actually insulin resistance. It's because literally our body can't keep up with the amount of carbs that we shove in our system. So that's kind of the issue. So we're going a little different direction today. I have just a great option for a quick snack. Sometimes my family likes to get together and watch movies at our house, or we're actually going to do something fun this weekend and have a coloring book date. Yeah, I know we're weird. It's cool. We create traditions. So I come up with ways that we can do a little bit less, a little healthier options, and they might not be the perfect option. This one does involve some cheese, but cheese isn't all bad. It just depends on what you're using with it. So what I'm doing today is a cheese pop popcorn. So of course it's a little bit higher in fats. Again, you kind of need to make sure that it's going to work with your macros. Now this one takes a little bit of prep work. One of the basic things that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to do this in advance because it takes about 48 hours for the cheese to dry. So now I'm actually using a little bit of a harder cheese. I've actually got two options just because I'm a huge fan of Parmesan. So I had to do a little bit of Parmesan. So I've got Parmesan as one of my options. And then I'm also using a little bit of Gouda. So you need a harder cheese because obviously the softer cheeses contain a little more moisture and it takes time for those to dry out. So I'm gonna just show you the prep really quick. So I've got a little bit left of my Parmesan and my Gouda. I do all these in advance to make sure that they're good. Not every recipe that I try actually is a success. I've had a few of them that I've gone, okay, that just did not work. It doesn't look like the picture. It didn't turn out. It doesn't even taste good. So I do all these in advance. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut these in very, very small pieces. Now it's really important that you get them fairly small because again, they have to dry out. It's gonna take a good 48 hours. So I'm gonna cut these into very, very small pieces, like not even like the ones I did in advance are really, really small. So I'm actually gonna cut, and I know you can't really see it in the view here, but I'm gonna cut really small pieces. Okay, now I already have my oven on. I preheated it to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. It's really funny when I get a recipe that says that's in more metric system because it's hard to translate, right? So I'm gonna cut these in very, very small pieces, and then I'm gonna take my favorite tool of all time, which is parchment paper, and I'm going to take a piece and put it on just a pan that I have that I can set out either in my kitchen. I actually have mine just setting in another room for the 48 hours. So I'll put that on my pan over here, okay, and then put all of my pieces of cheese, okay? So like I said, it just needs to be a harder cheese because it's gonna take a little bit of time to dry out. Now I've had a set that I've had drying for at least 48 hours. Like I said, I've got a little bit of Gouda, and they actually feel kind of hard, which is actually what you want. They look a little weird because like there's gonna be a little grease that comes out of them, but they're ready to go in the oven. So I'm gonna leave them on the parchment paper. I've set my oven to 400 degrees, and I'm actually gonna stick them in. Now the recipe says 3 minutes. I actually discovered you kind of have to watch it because it's honestly probably gonna be a little more than 3 minutes. But just pay attention to it, and that won't make a huge difference. But what happens is in the 400 degree heat, and because they're dried out, they're actually gonna pop. and kind of almost, I mean, it's not exactly like popcorn, but that's kind of the idea. You can see that this is kind of sprouted a little bit of extra there. And that's what they do. They kind of just pop into weird shapes. A little like the picture that I posted. That was from the actual Pinterest post that I took it from, and I will post the information down below. But it totally worked out. So what you're gonna do is stick in the oven for 3 minutes plus maybe. I think my first batch ended up at almost 6 minutes just because I needed it. It wasn't popping yet, but it worked out great. So pop it in the oven, leave it for a few minutes, and then you can actually store it in a tight container in your fridge until you actually need it. So I know, super easy, right? The hardest part, honestly, is waiting the 48 hours because I just want to eat the pieces of Parmesan cheese. But again, it works with my macros. I do super low carb during the week, and I do a little bit higher carb on the weekend just for what my goals are for right now. And it worked out great. Again, super simple. That's the way that I go in my life. Now, my daughter has challenged me to do a little more in the way of actual meal options. Because I don't do complicated, what I come up with for the next few weeks will be fairly simple. So if you are a family that just needs some new ideas, we're coming right your direction. Most of us in my household, like I said, are on meal plans, so we keep it fairly simple. We tend to food prep. We do like a whole batch of chicken in advance. I do a whole batch of salmon in advance, and then we just store it till we need it. But I get it. We kind of need some variety in our lives, and it's important to actually get a variety of foods to make sure you're getting different vitamins and minerals that you need. I understand we eat meals, but what we're eating is nutrients. Our body needs those nutrients in order to grow and function and heal. Your immune system, if you get sick frequently during the year, it's probably because you're not getting in, you're probably deficient. You're probably deficient in a lot of nutrients. There's ways to track that, and I think I might do a little video on that at some point. If you're interested in that, let me know, because I get my best ideas from you guys. So please leave a comment below if you have a great idea for a simple recipe. I've had some people give me some really great recipes, but they're like 10 or 12 ingredients, 6 or 7 steps. That's bordering on a little complicated for what I'd like to do and what I'd like to show you, but give me some great ideas, or if you have a request, you may also message me directly on Facebook Messenger. I do respond. So have an incredible weekend, you guys. If you tried this, please let me know what you thought, because of course, that's the best way I know how to do anything that helps you. So have an incredible weekend, you guys, and until next time, that's Meals with Melissa. Bye now.